Okay, that means it's my turn. Hi, everybody. I'm Gabe. I'm an alcoholic. Yep. Still not going to get used to that. I mean, no response, no laughter. You're taking like half of my lead away from me right there. But a few statistics. I am 48 years old. My sobriety date is April 28th, 2002. That means today is 8,333 days sober. And I look it up because in my online home group that I used to have, that I started a meeting, um, we used to do day counts, and you know I didn't plan on living to be 30 when I got sober. I was 24 when I got sober, and I was like, yeah, 30 seems old, and here I am pushing 50 and going, man, I got a lot of life left to live. You know, um, I do have a sponsor. My home group, I have an in-person home group right now, and that's Kirkland Sunday. It's Lake County Sunday is the meeting in the book. If you're ever in Northeast Ohio on a Sunday night, check us out. Um, and honestly, the reason it's my home group, it's 9 minutes from my house. It's perfect. And you know what? I go there and I'm not the one in the room with the most time because I still need to remain teachable. I got two sponsees, one that's active, one that's not so much, but that's not on me, that's on them. Um, the big book tells me to tell you what I was like, what happened, and what I'm like now. And I'm going to try to do that pretty easily. I forgot to set my timer though, so you're going to have to give me 1 second. All right. Okay. Um, so what I was like, I grew up like, I don't know, I had the average childhood, at least in my opinion. Um, I grew up in a rural area outside of where I'm at now. I've always lived pretty much about 20 miles. So Northeast Ohio, pretty much all my life. Um, when I talk, I try to talk about the feelings more about the experiences than the I did this because I want you to be able to know that I belong here. You know, we grew up relatively poor. It was a rural community. We were farming people. So it wasn't uncommon for us to have a quarter acre of a garden in the back so we could grow our own vegetables. Um, I lived there with my stepdad and my half brother and my mom. And my stepdad more than likely qualified for this program. I have his uh, one day at a time book. So I don't know, or no, it's a 24-hour book that he got in one of the endless treatments that he went to. Um, but when I was growing up, there was a lot of alcoholic abuse in my household. To kind of tell you about like overview of that, like I saw the effects of drinking from as long as I could remember. You know, it wasn't uncommon for fights, dishes flying across the room. Um, as it progressed throughout my childhood, I remember sleeping in a car because my dad came home one night from the bar and was going to kill us all. So I had a lot of experiences, none of which really make me an alcoholic, but it helped play into my lack of confidence. My stepdad was a ex Vietnam vet, and the way that he showed love was by telling me things like "You'll never amount to nothing," "You're worthless," "Nobody wants you," and trying to get me to be a better person. Looking back now, decades later, I know that's what he was trying for me to do to be um, better in life than what happened with him, not to be struggling constantly, day to day, all the time. Um, and any lack of love that I got from my stepdad, my mom made up for 10 times over. And me and my brother have always been tight. You know, um, I'll take you up to the first drink that I really remember. I was between the ages of 8 and 10. At that age, you believe in the Tooth Fairy, the Easter Bunny, Santa Claus, stuff like that, right? Well, my alcohol isms came relevant way before I picked up a drink. And one of those is wanting what I want when I want it, which is right now. And one of those things is I had a loose tooth, and I was like, you know what? If I put this tooth underneath my pillow, the tooth fairy will come and drop off money, and what I want is the money. So I would, I asked my stepdad if he'd pull a tooth for me. Um, he agreed. We went out to the garage, which was his workshop, and he sat me down on the bar stool because, of course, that's the kind of furniture you had in the garage, right? A bar stool. And as clear as if it happened yesterday, I remember taking a swig of his Colonial Club vodka, high class bottle, put it right up to my lips and took a sip. He told me to go ahead and do that because it would sterilize my mouth and numb the pain. Well, I did that. He pulled the tooth. The tooth came out. About a week later, I found out it was the wrong tooth because the loose tooth was still in there. But the point of that is that I don't remember it hurting. So alcohol worked from the beginning for me. You know, I'm not an alcoholic just in waiting. Just add alcohol at 8, 10 years old. I'm not craving a drink every day. I progressed throughout my teenage years, and like I don't really remember picking up a drink until about 13. During this time, a lot of people talk about in AA that we felt like that square peg trying to fit into a round hole. That was me. I was going to school. Like I said earlier, we grew up relatively poor, and when I'd go to school, I'd hear other people in the area going, "Yeah, we took this really horrible trip all summer, and we went to Mount Rushmore and Yellowstone, or we went down to the Grand Canyon, and it took us 5 days to get there in a van, and how horrible it was." And I'm going, "Man, I worked all summer to get these shoes that I'm wearing, like a full time job, and I always felt less than, um, we had these little cards that when we went to lunch, I'd tell the lunch lady my name. They would pull the card out, clip it, and I would get a free meal. So everybody else that had cash in their hand, I felt less than. You know, having the kind of encouragement that my stepfather had, my feelings of insecurity mounted up and mounted up. Um, the abuse that was going on, I grew to hate my stepdad, and to a point where when I was like 12, I um I remember distinctively going that this guy can't be my father, and there has to be something out there that's different. And I found out that he wasn't my biological father. Long and short of that, it took me a little bit of time. I asked my mom. I talked to worked up the courage, and on my 13th birthday, I called my biological father and told him who I was, and he promptly told me he had no sons and hung up the phone on me. My birthday is the end of the year; it's the 29th of December, and at 13 years old, I planned my suicide. I locked myself in my room, refused to come out, and was going to slit my wrists at midnight, nothing like dramatic being an alcoholic and waiting. I was going to cut my wrist at midnight and the world was going to regret not having me around. And midnight came and went and I couldn't even do that right. So on top of all these bad feelings, I couldn't even kill myself right. And I I mentioned the abuse for a couple reasons, and one of those is because I didn't turn to alcohol right away. 13 years old, it's a lot harder finding a bottle of booze than it is to find other stuff. I'm going to leave it at that because this is an AA meeting, but if I'd say drinking, partying, it's all the same thing. Ask me about it afterwards. I'd love to have a chat. If it was there, I did it. How's that? And again, even at 13 years old, I found my solution. You know, I finally had a little bit of courage. And again, it wasn't like I did it every day. I'm 13 years old. It's hard to do stuff at that age, so it progressed throughout high school. I didn't really have any major consequences. You know, maybe somebody caught me with something I shouldn't have when I went over to sleep at a friend's house. Um, my grades suffered a little bit. My senior year of high school, I I live in a very a very country esque area, and there was this half a credit psych class that I needed to take on my for a third period, and I couldn't stop drinking long enough in my senior year to make it through the day. So third period was my break period, and I would go to one of the local parks and go out and drink. And towards the end of that senior year of '96, um I went to the psych teacher because I was going to fail and I needed that half a credit to graduate. And I I remember going there and him telling me, he asked me who I was. That's how little I went to his class. And I go, oh yeah, no, this is the class I'm supposed to be in. And this guy was looking out for me. He gave me a stack of papers and said, if you get a C on the final and fill all these out, I'll pass you with a D. And I explained the situation to him that I needed to graduate, and this is the only class that I'm not going to be doing that in. So, um, long and short of that is that my mother, she ended up doing all the work for me, and I did pass it with a C, and lo and behold, it graduated. Now, one of the things that um, my stepdad taught me is that I could tell when he got home from the bar and how the door landed on the frame, what kind of mood he was in. And that helped me out through high school. After I had found my solution, I could be a chameleon. I could hang out with I used to have a decent voice and I used to be a singer and all that. So I was in choir. So I could hang out with them, and they're kind of goody two shoe people. I had a lot of nerdy friends that were really smart. But I also had like the burnouts, and I could be anybody you wanted me to be as long as you welcomed me in and you got me where I needed to get. As long as there was something I could get from you. Um, After graduation, there's these wonderful things that parents do. They throw graduation parties, they buy the booze, kids bring other stuff. And here I am at 18 years old planning out my week because I know that, Kim's going to have a party and she's one of my choir friends and there's just going to be beer there. But where I really want to end up at the end of the night is over at Jesse's house because Jesse's going to have the good stuff that's going to make me get obliterated. You know, all the signs of a full fledged alcoholic, and I'm 18 years old and still 6 years before I got sober. I'm not going to take you through blow by blow. Um, but I'll just tell you the consequences got worse and worse. In between 18 and 24, when I got sober, I went to 3 different treatments. Couple of those were in jail, and I've been locked up in our local Lake County jail 25 times in those 6 years. Everything was drinking and or drug related. Um, as soon as I turned 18, I got court papers, and I had to do 3 to 5 meetings a week, depending on how much trouble I was in currently. And that's how I got my introduction to AA. You know, I didn't think I belonged. You know, I was too young. Who has a problem with beer? They sell it at the gas station. All those things ran through my head. Um, so I'll take you through like to the end of my drinking. At this time, I had gotten in trouble again. It was big boy trouble. I ended up stealing $11,000 from my gas station that I worked at over a period of time. Um, and they caught me, and it was a couple felonies. As a result of that, I had to spend pretty much all of 2001 in jail. I was in jail for 9/11, you know, and and I do good in treatment. You know, like one of the things that it was like an alternative to prison that I went to, and one of the things that they do there, it's like a treatment esque live-in residential type of thing, and it's a great program if you follow through with it. I remember real distinctly there was a class towards the end, and it was called reintegration, and you had to go home on passes of varying lengths, and you had to go to a meeting during that pass, and you had to find a sponsor, and then you had to write this paper about who your sponsor was, what meetings you were going to, what clean and sober um, job you were going to have, what clean and sober living environment. And I do good in treatment. You know, like you give me a packet on shame, got it. You want to we sit in an IOP. I'll tell you about how my dad used to hit me, and I cry on command. You know, I'm a good alcoholic. Um, and I aced that thing, but about 2 weeks before I got out, I called up my best friend at the time, and she was engaged to my brother. And I told her to pick me up, that we had to go talk to my PO, and then we were going out and partying because I'd been in jail for like 250 days. And we were going to the bar. You know, just that quick. That's all it took for me to go back running. Um, you know, and after spending 250 days in jail, I got out like mid October. And by my birthday, the end of the year, I was dropping a dirty urine, you know, and I didn't understand what happened, you know. And part of the consequences of that was my last little stint in jail. And they told me I had to go to this residential place called Lake House. And, you know, of course, yes, please don't send me to prison. I'll do whatever. I have a problem, cry in front of the judge. Cool. And I still didn't want what you guys had. You know, when they sent me to jail, they gave me X amount of days, and I had to call this guy, Dave Hanlon, and he was the I don't know, the director of the men's and women's houses, and you were supposed to call him every week and show that you wanted this. And after a couple times he told me there was no beds, I stopped calling because don't you know who I am? And uh anybody that's on papers, I always say this in my in-person meetings, you know, that stack of papers sitting right there. um if you lie to your PO, they check up on you. Mine did. He called Dave Hanlon and asked what was going on with the bed for Gabe McCormick, and boom, nothing. Didn't know who I was, didn't lie for me, and here my PO extended my uh, probation indefinitely until I went to Lake House. So I started putting a little more effort in, and long and short of that is that I went on April 22nd of 2002, a week before I got sober. I called Dave. He asked me some dumb questions like, could I stay sober a week? And I agreed that I would. Would I continue to go to the meetings that I've been going to? Of course I will. And uh, can I be here the following Monday at 9 o'clock in the morning? And I go, you know, nine's a little early. Is there any way I can come in afternoon? I'm a second shifter. And he goes, well, you'll be here at 9. Oh, you'll give your bed away. So, and I said, all right, well, I guess I'll have to be there at 9. And I went, oh, crap. Monday's reporting day. So I had to get up earlier to go see my PO beforehand. And I called him up again, not excited. I just had a list of stuff from the judge. And Lake House was one of those things. And I called my PO and was like, hey, so I got a bed. Now I'm coming. I have this dilemma. Do you want me to come see you before I go? And there's a part in the big book where it talks about alcoholics having a problem differentiating the truth from the false. My truth and what I heard was, of course, Gabe, I don't want you to come see me. You only have a week left to party, so you better start now. He said something more along the lines of, come and see me when you have enough time and you can see me on your own. And that's the first one was what I did. And my last drunk wasn't anything remarkable. You know, I was in a blackout for like 4 days, but that wasn't uncommon at this point in my life. You know, I vaguely remember my grandmother who I was living with, my brother and his wife at the time, um, and like a small collections of girls, ladies that worked at this convenience store across the railroad tracks where I would buy my beer at. That's really about it. If anybody here said that they were with me that week, I'd have to take your word for it. I don't know. I know that the thing that I know is that I knew I didn't want to come in here looking like I knew you. I'd been around enough treatments and came to meetings for 6 years that I didn't want to look like I belonged. So on Saturday night, Sunday morning, whatever it is, really before you go to bed, finished everything in the house. And Sunday was my recovery day, you know, because God forbid I'm hungover on Monday morning when I go to treatment. Because again, I'm not an alcoholic. And you know, so I did that, and I remember, you know, I have to get up early. It's like 8 o'clock on Sunday night. My bags are packed. I'm ready to go. I'm in bed trying to go to sleep, and I'm not excited. I don't do well with other people. I don't play nice, and I don't want to be going into this place. So I'm anxious in there, and I remember looking up at the ceiling, going, "Hey, if there's anything out there, you got 90 days to show me something different, or else I'm going to do what I always did." You know, and here I am. I'm 24 years old, living with my grandmother, cocky, arrogant, and bargaining with a God that I don't believe in. Because when I tried to kill myself at 13, I basically turned my back on any kind of higher power. So that's how I came to you guys. Full flight from reality and a hot mess. Um, you know, I'd love to tell you I walked in there and I was a model client. I was not. I was a liar, a cheat, and a thief. Um, you know, and I blew smoke and I told when I went to jail in January, that was my sobriety date, not like that I'd been drinking 2 days before, you know, because I didn't want them to kick me out. Again, not that I wanted to get sober. I just needed to get I needed to get the judge off my back. Um, you know, and that first week was really big for me. You know, I'd been going to meetings for about 6 years, and I would attend the meeting. I would show up at, you know, real early, like 7:55 for the 8 o'clock meeting. And at 9 o'clock, I'm sitting there looking at my watch going, it's time to go. This guy needs to shut up, you know, and I knew two people in Alcoholics Anonymous. This lady on Wednesday or on Thursday that used to sign my paper named Debbie, and this other guy who for years had tried to get me to join his home group, but he always remembered my name, and he was a short old man, and he had these aviator trifocals that you could see the lines on, and he'd always see me come in, and you couldn't miss me. For years I used to go to meetings like his meeting, and I would dress like a raver. If you don't know what that is, let me kind of describe it quickly. Picture me, blonde, spiky hair, all of like 20 years old. So get rid of all the wrinkles and thin. I'd have a black Kangol visor on with plastic hearts and stars on it, usually a tie and a white press shirt. And I'm looking around and I see a couple older people. You guys remember bell bottoms, right? You know, they came back in the early 2000s. Yep. 69-inch pants on the bottom, and that's what I wore. I stuck out like a sore thumb. When people came and shook my hand, they knew I was new, you know, and I knew those two people, and I was told to get a sponsor in a home group. And I didn't think they'd let me get this girl, even though I liked her better. And I was like, but there's this guy on that Wednesday meeting, so I'll ask him. And he became my sponsor. And everything was right in the world. That first week, by Friday, I started to get this kind of a knot in my stomach, and it grew and grew and it got worse and worse as the week went by. And on Friday, I had asked my counselor if I could talk to her, and I came clean about when my sobriety date was, that it was actually the day that I came in and all that. And she goes, "Oh, well, we have to call your PO on that." And I went, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. I was just really upfront and honest with you, and you can send me to prison, and she called. He was gone for the day, which was wonderful because she left a message. And so now I had to worry about being sent to prison all weekend. And she suggested that my sponsor come over. And that's really the introduction with my sponsor that I got. He came over and hung out with me, and whatever happens, happens. I'm going to fast forward a little bit because there's one of the most important things that happened to me in treatment. About 6 weeks sober, my sponsor says, fill out a pass. We're going to this place in Akron, second weekend in June. Fill it out Saturday morning. I'm going to come pick you up at 8 o'clock, and then I'm going to drop you off Sunday morning at like 1 in the morning. And I go, excuse me, passes are 4 hours. I don't know if you know this. He used to be the Dave Hanlon, the director of the lake house, so he knew that. And he goes, just fill it out and see what they say. They approved it, and here I'm going to this place called Founders Day. And again, I used to be real shy, really introverted. I didn't want anybody talking to me, touching me, anything, talking to me. And here I am in Akron, Ohio, with my sponsor, and I'm broke. My parents are out of state, and my grandma's the only person in the area with any kind of connection to me for money. And here I am in Akron, broke, and my sponsor paid for the ticket, and we got there, and he did what he did, and he did what he does, and he would find somebody and welcome them. That's what he did everywhere he went. And there's a part in how it works where it said that we stood at a turning point, and that first Founders Day was that for me. We get there, he welcomes some people, he points them in the right direction to go to register to be at the conference, and then he starts showing me the history of AA. We go down to the Mayflower, and they were having a meeting inside the room, and we get there, and we just get close enough to close with the Lord's Prayer, and I felt something there, and he's showing me the clock on the wall, or the phone on the wall, and went up and showed me the chapel, which used to be the bar that they talk about in Bill's story, and then we go down to Dr. Bob's house, and Dr. Bob's house is crazy on Founders Day weekend. We waited like an hour and a half the first time to run through the house, and we only were in there for like, I don't know, 6 minutes, but and we left out of there, and as we're standing in line, those ladies that he helped from like the Midwest, in the parking lot, he helped them, and they just happened to be in front of us. And what I remember about that is, as we're walking up the stairs, tears are coming down their face because they're so grateful to be at the birthplace of AA. And I felt something again. And I mentioned earlier that I'm a good student. You tell me to learn something, I got you. And even though the Irishman at the door said, don't do the third step prayer at the surrender room, me and my sponsor and the guy that is with me, that's with him, we're all on our knees, and I couldn't get the words to come to my mouth. I knew them. We had a meditation group every morning, and at the end of it, we said the third step prayer, and I knew the prayer backwards, forwards, and my sponsor just happened to have a shirt on where it said, I can, I can't, he can, I think I'll let him do it. And on the back is the third step prayer. And I had to read the prayer off his back, and I felt something again. And later that night, we went to the John A. Rose Arena, and it when it used to be simulcast, and it was like the main place, and everybody was pumped up about getting there, and we we got there at like 6:30, and I was like, "What does the meeting start? 7?" They're like, "No, 8:30," and I'm like, "Whoa." I'm a smoker. Wait, what? You want me to go without smoking for like 4 hours? And when we get inside, we find our seats, and everybody. I mean, it's packed at 6:45. There's not a seat in the place, and people are sitting in their seats, and people are pumped up about sobriety. It's a basketball arena race, basically, and people are doing the wave, and it's going around and around, and I mentioned earlier that I used to be a guy who sang in choir, and they have these ladies come out. Well, mostly ladies. They have a group of individuals that are volunteers, and they're called the Serenity Singers. And man, that got me right where I needed to be. Saw these people out there. Now picture in your head your grandmother at church, full vibrato, that nice uh, wave on their voice. Now imagine that kind of music, that kind of a voice singing like Aerosmith, Don't Want to Miss a Thing, We Are Family, YMCA, We Will Rock You. That's what was going on, and it was awesome for me. And beach balls are flying around, and people are pumped up about sobriety. And the meeting went on. I couldn't tell you who it was. Don't even have a clue. Um, what I do know and what I do remember about it is when he finished, we stood up and we said the Lord's Prayer, and then we all held hands, and it was almost like I could look in that arena and see the presence of God in that room. And that's when it clicked for me. You know, later on that night, my sponsor took me to my first sober dance. Like I mentioned, I used to be a raver. I basically look like I'm having a seizure on the dance floor. So I'm playing it cool and holding up the wall to make sure everybody else has a good time. And I have some ladies from my home group come out, and they uh, help me by teaching me a stupid line dance, and they pull me out and make me dance, and they taught me the booty call, and that, and I had fun. I had fun in sobriety. When I got back, I when I got back to the house, I stopped running with people I lived with. I didn't want what they had anymore. I had people pick me up with 5, 10, 20, 30 years of sobriety. That's what I wanted. And I jumped in the foot in the middle of the bed and went to it. You know, I'd love to tell you all the good stuff, but we're going to try to hit some highlights. But I made it through the rest of Lake House, and I needed some more direction. So my sponsor ended up, he used to rent rooms out in his house, and it was like a sober living, but non-affiliated. And I was told by a couple people that I was going to go and live with my grandma, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to go take care of her. And they tell me nice things like, she already raised her kids, she doesn't need to raise you too. Why don't you ask your sponsor for a room? And I asked. He said yes. I lived with him for a decade. Long stories, lots of stories there. But it held me accountable. And I started going to meetings. And just because we get sober doesn't mean everything's all rainbows and butterflies. Um, I had a lot of messed up stuff happen in my first decade of sobriety. I was like a year and a half sober. I've been going to the same meetings for years and years. I get a phone call at work, and my mom's going in for emergency surgery. They found a spot on her brain. She had a headache for like 2 weeks, and it's cancer, and they're going to go remove it. And I skip probation, leave the state without permission, and go down there to be by her side. But I get to make an amends to her just in case, God forbid, she doesn't remember me afterwards. And I get to clear my side of the street. And we have a nice long cry and talk, and we work things out, and we do more than say, I'm sorry. We go, I'm going to fix this. Tell me how to do that. You know, about a year and a half later, she ended up losing the battle with cancer because when they found the brain stuff, they found lung cancer, and she went through chemo and radiation for about another year and a half. And my mom was in her early 50s when she died. And my sponsor again opened up our house for calling hours because she didn't have any of that stuff planned, and he invited everybody in AA, and you all showed up. My home group made food. My sponsor bought flowers. And when you guys showed up, you shoved 50s and hundreds and $20 bills in my pocket, and Alcoholics Anonymous paid for my mom's funeral because my stepdad, who just lost his wife, was in the midst of his addiction. He was smoking crack. He didn't know how to deal with it. I had you guys, you know, and you guys paid for that. So I owe, and that's why I put this suit on, because I owe the program that saved my life. A couple years later, my stepdad, um, his heart exploded one time doing what he did, and again, you guys came and you showed up. A few years after that, um, I had been seeing a guy, and we broke up when he had couple months sober because I was trying to sponsor him and be his, like, not officially, but here I am with 10 years. He got sober, and I want to tell him how to do it. And I needed to stop that. So I needed him to grow on his own. And he got about 14 months sober and thought heroin was a good idea. And he overdosed at 30. And a couple of years after that, my grandmother died. you know um and it was really an eye-opening thing for me by the time I was 35 that I didn't really have any family except my brother left. um so that was kind of a hard thing for me to process. But on the other hand, there's a lot of really good stuff that happens in sobriety. You got sober dances, we got AA stuff online now, at least more in the mainstream now. You know, I've been to every Founders Day except one. My when my sponsor's mother passed away, I didn't go to Founders Day because he left me in charge of the dogs, and I couldn't go and have fun without him when he was burying his mother to go to Founders Day and keep, you know, that's the only one I missed in almost 25 years. You know, we have a local thing. It's a biannual uh, Punderson Park conference. I I've been to every one since I got into Lake House. I was on the committee for 7.5 years, took 10 years off. I'm back on the committee, and I'm the chairperson of the committee. You know, I love service work. I mentioned earlier about my online home group, and you know, from going to the same meetings and learning this program and learning the traditions from 12 and 12 studies and good sponsorship and seeing them in action. I was able to help break away from the other 9 o'clock group and move us together, and we follow as many traditions as we could. And we have a home group meeting and stuff like that to talk about any types of issues that come up, and the meeting keeps on evolving. Um, about a year ago, I stopped going to that and I started going to an in-person meeting. I helped start a sober club in the area, actually in Karen's hometown. I helped start that. And because we're alcoholics, my feelings got hurt. I got asked to leave. I'm just going to leave it at that. It was one of those things where I had to move on. And where I'm at today, um, things are really good. When I left the sober club I was living in, it was like the beginning of the height of the rent going to insane amounts. And I ended up buying a trailer in an 55 and older community, which is awesome because I'm that 20% that they're allowed. And I had to beg the owners to let me in. And I go, look, I'm 20 years sober. I don't drink. I have a dog. She's got paperwork. And I don't do anything. I just need to sit in my house. And you know what? I love the people here. I got 2 years out of 5 on this house that I've been paying, and it's going to be mine. You know, I'm getting ahead of the curve because usually when people retire, they downsize. I'm just going to stay here because it's just me and my dog. And I've been working for the same person for like 12, 15 years, you know, and she's probably more of a sponsor than my actual sponsor because we spend 40 hours a week together. She's got 42 years sober. She got sober at 16. That's what I get to go to work for. And on top of it, I get presents like she drops me off food. She says, "Hey, I made too much sausage gravy. Here, take this home. Hey, here's half of a loaf of lemon blueberry bread. Take this." You know, I have the best job, you know. Um, and I try to instill that, you know, all I did was suit up and show up. And and life's gotten pretty good. Hold on, I gotta pick her up. Oh, come here, baby. All right. That means that I've been on too long. Let me just tell you, you know, I say my prayers in the morning. I go to as many meetings as I can. Um, you know, I was talking earlier. I just started working out at a gym, and I'm down 20 pounds. I'm feeling amazing. Life is really good today. There is something that I like to close my lead with. The first time that I ever went to a state conference, it was actually the first gay conference that I went to. It was called the Ohio Roundup, and they had these little index cards, and on the like it was called the Ohio Roundup 20 2003. There is a solution, and then on the back, this was written on it, and I'm going to read that, and then I'm going to go ahead and close this out. And it's on page 25 of the big book. There is a solution. Almost none of us like the self searching, the leveling of our pride, the confessions of our shortcomings, which the process requires for its successful consummation. But we had saw that it really worked in others, and we had come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we had been living it. When, therefore, we were approached by those in whom the problem had been solved, there was nothing left. There was nothing left for us but to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. We have found much of heaven, and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed. If you got nothing else out of my speaking tonight, know that that fourth dimension is my life today. Karen, thank you so much for asking me to lead for you tonight. Thank you.